So first up, we're going to watch the one where Burley questions Liz Truss, which does have a couple of bits and pieces that I've seen that have been floating around on Twitter, but it's Burley, so she's usually pretty she's usually pretty kind of vociferous in her questioning, so it should be interesting.
You said that public sector pay policy has been misrepresented by the media. Here's the proposals that you released. Introduce regional pay boards, tailoring pay to the cost of living where civil servants actually work, saving up to £8.8 billion per year. So how have we misrepresented you so far?
Well, what I am clear about is that policy was not about teachers and doctors. But can I be clear, Kay, that I'm not going ahead with this policy?
You can, but you said that you were misrepresented. I'm just clarifying.
Because of the concerns.
But yeah, because people told you that you're a dickhead for doing it. You saw, oh, the optics of this are bad. Let's U-turn this on this one immediately, just like Theresa May U-turned over the dementia tax.
That have been expressed.
Okay,
and when something is wrong, when there's an issue, I deal with it.
Okay, but just to clarify whether you were misrepresented or not, you highlighted a very specific saving, £8.8 billion. How did you reach that figure?
Well, I don't have the details, and I do think discussing a policy that I'm not progressing
well, I can tell you, obviously these people, it's very pressing for these people, certainly some of them, so we just want to bottom it out, and then we're definitely there, and I'm sure you won't have to answer these questions again. It's exactly the same figure, the £8.8 billion, that was issued by the Taxpayers Alliance. They say regional-based pay could allow private sector salaries to catch...
Oh, what's that? She's taking her cues from right-wing pressure groups and not from the overall general population. I wonder why that might be. I mean, obviously it's because she doesn't have to appeal to the wider population. This isn't an election based upon a majority democratic mandate. This is a very tiny minority of conservative members deciding the direction that the country is going to go in. It seems like basically every Tory government could do this. Basically go on a moderate ticket to win the election. Just switch leaders like randomly halfway through the campaign and they go, well, we have a mandate to do whatever we want because the members say, and that's what we got elected on. I was like, no. You got elected on the 2019 manifesto, mate. I mean, theoretically, that manifesto, rather than just, get Brexit done.
With the public sector.
Which they didn't do.
This can be done by freezing or reducing pay for existing roles and new positions. In other words, pay cut for nurses, doctors, firemen, police officers in less affluent areas, which is what this gentleman was saying. That wasn't what you were proposing. You've changed your mind.
Absolutely, that was not my intention. But given the concern that was caused, I took an immediate decision not to proceed with this policy.
Okay.
And I am somebody who immediately, if there are issues of concern and those are not delivering what I want.
Basically, it would be, even if I will tell everybody my explicit ideology, and then I will U-turn on the bits and pieces which people think are abhorrent. Maybe, Liz, that's not a problem with the policy specifically. It's the problem with you ideologically, that the policies that you think are going to be good, everyone fucking hates, right? Imagine if you weren't doing, none of this was to do with the optics, and it was entirely to do with just you doing what you wanted to do to impose your ideological perspective onto the country. Everything would fucking turn to shit, and everyone would hate you for it.
Want to deliver, I will make a decision to do the right thing, and that's what I've done.
Not just this gentleman here, but Ben Houchen, the Conservative Mayor of Tees Valley, said there's no way you can do this without a massive pay cut for 5.5 million people, including nurses, police officers and our armed forces outside of London. Do you accept that you made a mistake by announcing the policy?
I do accept that the way the policy has been interpreted.
Oh God, this fucking Weasley answer. It was a bad policy optically that I support ideologically. Just say it.
To cover those people was not right, and that's why I took an immediate decision not to go ahead with it.
You offended people, though. You misread the mood. You accept that it was a mistake?
What I've said is I absolutely accept.
I mean, to be fair, for all of the shit that Kay Burley gets, she's definitely trying to fulfill some kind of Paxman-style did you threaten to overrule him role, which, quite frankly, our journalism has been sorely lacking.
That it wasn't the right policy to deal with this situation, and therefore I withdrew the policy immediately. And I'm somebody who is honest and upfront, Kay. I dealt with the issue immediately after the concerns were expressed about how this policy had been interpreted, and I've dealt with it straight away.
OK, it was a mistake, though.
Well, as I've said, I've withdrawn the policy.
She won't say it.
We're not going ahead with the policy. So therefore, the points you're making are about a policy that isn't happening.
No, what I'm saying is, should good leaders own their mistakes, or should they blame others?
I'm not blaming anybody else. I'm saying that the policy has been misrepresented by various people. But what I don't want at this time when people are struggling with the cost of living is to concern people with this policy.
Why the weird face close-up?
Which isn't a core part of my policy platform, and I'm not going ahead with it.
Okay, let's talk about the economy scene as we've moved on to that. I want to talk to you about your plans to help the worst off, if I may. We've spoken to Selina. She's a
What plans to help the worst off? She's got nothing. It's like Velma grilling Taffy. True.
single mum in the northeast of England. She works part-time to support her 3 children and earns just over £10,000 a year. What will you do to help her when her energy bills reach £500 a month in January?
So first of all, I'll take immediate action to reverse the national insurance rise. And
won't help her. She earns less than £12,570, so she won't benefit.
Also, the green energy levy will be taken off your bills.
That's £150, and so that's a drop in the bucket, really, isn't it?
And what
Apparently
I will also
something like 9 days of energy for her.
And what I will also do is work to increase the amount of supplies we're getting out of the North Sea so that we can get more gas into our system, so we can move forward on dealing with the energy crisis and energy security.
Not
because
by January,
just cap the prices. Please just cap the prices.
Ultimately, these problems can only be dealt with by, first of all, making sure Putin is defeated by the Ukrainians so that we don't have this energy supply problem. And
World War III is coming. It's going to happen.
Also, by releasing more reserves in the North Sea. I'm also in favour of fracking in areas that support it, so we get more of our own domestic energy supply. But what I can assure you, Kay...
Build green energy, please.
...is I will do all I can to help people who are struggling with the cost of living. I understand...
Now, if it was Rupert all along, then it would be at least somewhat kind of cogent, and the points wouldn't be a fucking garbled mess, and there'd be at least some level of charisma. She's just there's nothing positive about Liz Truss. She's just a bad person in every possible sense of the word. Like she has no redeeming qualities whatsoever.
That people are going through difficult times, and if there are any more available resources, of course I would put that to helping people with the cost of living.
Let me tell you what Selina said, if I may. These are Selina's words. I'm really worried about...
She's like Cassandra from Doctor Who episode 2.
How I'm going to keep my children warm and fed. This is going to cost lives if they don't do something now.
But this is why it's so very important that we offer support to businesses, that we...
It's not going to help her.
Well, it will help her because the real danger we're in...
See what I mean? Like, literally asking, how will you help this incredibly poor person? And Liz Truss goes, I will drill for more oil and I will help businesses. She does not care about anybody. She does not care about people. I mean, she's definitely the funniest. But not ha-ha, not fun, not like funny ha-ha. Like, funny, terrifying.
Country, and this is what the Bank of England has said today, is we're facing a recession. And what a recession would mean is people losing their jobs, businesses going out of business, people struggling across the country. So that's why it's so important we do things like keeping corporation tax low, keeping personal taxes as low as possible, getting things like infrastructure projects done quicker.
This person pays no income tax. This person doesn't pay any fucking income tax because they earn less than £12,500 a year, you fucking clown.
To grow the economy. That is ultimately the way we are going to deal with this crisis, is through economic growth.
OK, here's an idea. What about the windfall tax?
Well, the problem is like, what are you going to do to help this person on less than £12,500 a year? Nothing. Jolly good show. None of the Tory members of these... No one on that income is a Conservative member. Nobody. Like, because she doesn't have to appeal to them.
Shell posted profits of £9.3 billion between April and June. If we put that another way, Shell made £1,190 per second. So since I started the sentence, they've made £17,000 in profit. Why don't we have another windfall tax?
Well, the problem with a windfall tax is that it might secure money in the short term. But what it does is it puts off companies investing in Britain in the long term because they think...
No, it doesn't, because these are excess profits, Liz. These are profits they never had plans on reinvesting. These were profits that were going to get passed out in shareholder dividends and were never earmarked for reinvestment. So you can windfall tax these regardless. You shouldn't have to. What you should just do is just increase overall tax rather than windfall tax. And second of all, what you should do is you should bring them onto fucking public ownership. Obviously, she won't do it.
They think at any point they could be taxed. And I think that is a problem. What we need to show is Britain's open for business. We're a country that keeps to our word of what our taxes are. And windfall...
But this is the idea that it would just be that you would just completely kind of kibosh any ability for any company to want to invest within the UK because you're doing a windfall tax specifically on energy companies during a massive cost of living crisis, specifically around the price of energy. I think that's going to put off other businesses from engaging in overall investment. Right? Especially when the money that you're taxing isn't money that they had earmarked for investment in the first place as excess profits. Does it make any fucking sense?
Taxes are essentially surprise taxes that companies don't know are happening. What I would do instead, Kay, is make sure we're incentivising.
If you were doing like windfall taxes on just like non-excess profits, whatever, right? Then sure, maybe you'd have a point, but that's not what's being proposed, or what was proposed by Rishi Sunak in February.
The likes of Shell to be releasing more resources from the North Sea to actually help the problem that we face, which is
Actually, the only solution she has is more oil and more money for rich people. Those are the only solutions that she has.
a lack of energy supply.
The head of BP said that his business would continue to invest if there was another windfall tax.
It's not just BP, though. It's the signal that it sends to every business across the country that the government is willing to give you a surprise tax. And I think that is a problem for Britain. I've already talked about how our corporation tax rate is uncompetitive compared to other countries.
Even at the rates at which Rishi Sunak was intending to put it up to, we would still be the joint lowest corporation tax in the G7. And also, if you want businesses to invest, corporation tax is a good thing. By taxing the profits that otherwise would get paid out in shareholder dividends, what you do is you incentivize businesses on taking that money, then reinvesting it into the company and within their own workforce to try and avoid the corporation tax if they were otherwise to pay it out as shareholder dividends. Increasing corporation tax is an excellent progressive tax, and Rishi understands this. We've already had like record low corporation tax for like a decade, and it's not stimulated economic growth. We've been completely stagnant, both in wage growth and incredibly small economic growth that's been far outstripped by the rest of the countries in Europe, or the rest of the countries in the G7, which do have higher corporation tax than us. And Rishi, I hate to give it to him, but he is 100% correct in his analysis of the need to increase corporation tax to encourage investment, because that's what it does. Liz Truss just proving here that she doesn't have a fucking clue what she's talking about. Then again, when was the last time you heard an objectivist say anything normal?
If we also have a reputation for levying a surprise tax on any industry that makes a profit, that is a big problem for our country.
Shell is giving their shareholders £6.5 billion. People at home watching who can't afford to heat their homes come the winter will be horrified at that.
At home watching, not in the audience with the rest of the Tory membership.
Who these shareholders are? These shareholders are often people with pensions, pension funds. Shareholders are not, all sort of men in suits sitting in offices. There's no such thing as free money. And I just think we've got to be very careful. If the UK gets a reputation for arbitrarily taking money in tax that we've not sort of done through the official tax system, I think that's a problem.
OK, let's move on to foreign affairs.
And if you actually look at the shares that people have in Centrica, institutions have 80% of the total shares in Centrica, which is the company that owns British Gas. Individual insiders, 0.03. Stake to government, 0.1, right? Employee share scheme, 2.9. General public, 15.8. Institutional investors, 80.5%. She's talking bullshit. She's lying to you.
As we've talked about it a little bit. Do you want a sip of water?
Yeah.
You're very welcome. Talking about Taiwan, I'm sure that we've all seen, haven't we, what's been happening in Taiwan over the last few.
Hey, Samuel Andretti. Nice to hear that people move across from platform to platform, which I found incredibly difficult to do, to try and get people across from TikTok onto YouTube. But I'm glad to see people here. Good to see that it's been working well. I've been going pretty viral on TikTok in recent days, been riding the algorithmic wave, so hopefully I can get some extra content to pop onto TikTok today. Well, we're talking about the investor profile of Centrica, might be a good clip.
Few days. As Foreign Secretary, you told a select committee last month that we should have armed Ukraine earlier. Should we arm Taiwan now?
Well, what we do need to make sure is that democracies like Taiwan are defended. And yesterday I put out a statement with my fellow G7 foreign ministers about the very difficult situation in Taiwan and concern about the rhetoric that we're hearing from China, the escalatory rhetoric. Of course, we have a very secure control.
I bet she's just gonna go over and say that she doesn't recognise the sovereignty of Hong Kong or some shit. Just do what she did with Sergei Lavrov when dealing with whichever Chinese dignitary she has to speak with regards to the foreign policy issue with Taiwan. Of course, probably what's going to end up happening.
Whole system for exports in the United Kingdom, and we do license exports to Taiwan.
Or she's going to miss it. Or she's going to not know the difference. She's going to mix up the Pacific Ocean with the Indian Ocean.
At the moment, exports that are provided by the private sector.
So should we arm them or not?
Well, what I'm saying is we already license equipment to go to Taiwan.
Okay.
And it's a long-standing policy of the UK government to do that.
Okay, you said to the Foreign Affairs Select Committee in June, month before last, we should have done things earlier. We should have been supplying the defensive weapons into Ukraine earlier. We need to learn that lesson for Taiwan. Every piece of equipment we have sent takes months of a training. So the sooner we do that, the better. So just to clarify, we do license arms that go there, but that is as far as we're going to go at this stage.
Yes, that is as far as we will go at this stage. But we are working with our allies very closely on this because there are countries like the United States, Japan, who also are extremely concerned about the future of Taiwan.
Okay.
And what we need to do is work collectively. And I have championed the G7 acting together as an economic NATO to challenge some of China's economic coercion practices, but also to make sure we're looking at the security situation and making
their economic coercion practices, such as teaching people Mandarin at universities. These all the Confucius centers, shut them fucking down. Get rid of them. Shut down TikTok as well, apparently, and Tencent.
sure democracies like Taiwan are protected. I'm sure you can understand, Kay, that I can't go into every detail of those conversations
because I want
on
you to
TV. But
I'm gonna when we should just come PM. I'm gonna head down to Colin Firth's house and hide in his nuclear bunker that he built.
it's a very important principle that we do not allow aggressors to invade democratic places.
We've seen Nancy Pelosi, another strong, influential woman in Taiwan this week. Will you visit?
Why specifically democratic? Is she saying that she'd be fine for aggressors to invade North Korea or some shit?
Taiwan, if you're Prime Minister?
We currently have a long-standing...
So yes or no question, really?
No. We have a long-standing position that the Foreign Secretary, the Ministry of Defence and the Prime Minister don't visit Taiwan.
Let me talk to you about Ukraine. Was it an error of judgment to say you'd support Brits going to fight in Ukraine?
What I was very clear about is that I supported the cause of the fight in Ukraine, but I've always been clear that the
I'm waiting for Burley to bring out the receipts here.
travel advice is that British people should not go to Ukraine.
No, what you said was, I do support that when Zelensky called for international volunteers. Ukrainians are fighting for freedom, not just for Ukraine, but the whole of Europe. And you did support people.
Oh, you just love it. Love to see it.
You did support Brits going to Ukraine to fight.
Well, what I supported...
You had to be corrected by your own Defence Secretary.
What I was saying is that I supported the cause in Ukraine.
OK. Your Foreign Office website said Brits travelling to fight in Ukraine could be committing an act of terrorism. Did you know that when you said it?
Well, what I've said is that I support the cause in Ukraine, and actually I've done a lot of work.
Stop repeating the same shit. I can't believe Tory members are going to get caught up by her just having nothing but rehearsed talking points when I guess a bunch of fucking stormtroopers will happily accept Keir Starmer's rehearsed talking points. So clearly people like the liberal intelligentsia just get completely blindsided by spin.
To support British citizens who have been detained in Ukraine, who've been there in the long term, and the Foreign Office has provided those people with
Are you
support.
sorry that people misinterpreted what you were saying?
Well, what I have said is that the advice was very clear, the travel advice was very clear, and I announced that publicly, that people shouldn't go to Ukraine. But I think what is happening...
It wasn't very clear, because we spoke to people in Poland who were going into Ukraine, who were Brits that had crossed the border and were then subsequently going into Ukraine.
Well, there have been many British people going into Ukraine during the war, but we are very clear about our travel advice.
OK, I've got some quick-fire questions for you.
Just say that it was wrong. Just say that you were wrong to just randomly send people to their death.
If I may, here we go. In your first meeting with the Queen, will you apologise for wanting to abolish the monarchy?
Well, I've already met the Queen, and she's been far too polite to raise that issue with me, and I will not be raising it with her.
OK, but if she did, would you apologise?
Well, I was wrong. I was wrong to say what I did at the time.
OK, will you be...
She was fucking 19 at the time. I know it's funny. I know she's a lol cow. We're just going, oh, did you not say this thing that you previously agreed with, but you now disagree with? Ooh. Like, yeah, okay, I guess.
Apologising to the First Minister.
Yeah, it's true. Truly the only based opinion she's ever had in her life.
...of Scotland when you see her.
No, I won't.
What's the naughtiest thing you've ever done?
I'm certainly not going to say that on TV.
Oh, was it that naughty?
Well, my daughters are watching, so I don't want them getting...
Incisive questioning here from Burley. Look how funny I am.
The idea is, Kay.
Yeah. Being Prime Minister is the most invasive, exposed period in any politician's life. Is there anything that you feel that you would want to come clean with the audience here in the studio and at home?
Because there's no one else listening, so it's all fine.
Secretly a lizard, secretly a reptilian humanoid.
I can just tell.
Anything that you need to get off your chest?
I can tell you, Kay, there are no skeletons.
She's a lizard. There's no skeleton. Actually, she's no skeleton because she's completely invertebrate. She's not even a lizard or a reptilian. She's like an insect. There's no skeleton inside because it's all exoskeleton. She's really she's the fucking she's Terminator. She's the T-1000. It's liquid mess under. She's been sent back in time to destroy socialism.
Skeletons in my closet. I think everything I've ever said and done is known about very publicly.
Would you remove the whip from Boris Johnson if he's found to have deliberately misled Parliament over Partygate?
I'm not making any prejudgments about that.
Why not?
Well, I'm not making prejudgments. I'll see what the committee says.
But if they say deliberately misled Parliament?
As I say, I'm not making any prejudgments about that case.
Well, you can make a prejudgment when somebody's telling you, well, we're not asking you to make a prediction of about what they will or won't say. But if they do say this, what would be your reaction? Like, that's not the same as what you're saying, Liz.
One change.
By the way, I'm very clear he didn't mislead Parliament.
Well, we'll see what the what the committee.
I mean, because trying to tie people's like national identity to some kind of hereditary group or some kind of symbolic understanding of national pride rather than anything, actually material that unites people for their own actual kind of opinions and cultures or whatever is an excellent way of dividing people who have differing interests materially, right? If you say, well, you may be bourgeois and then you extract surplus value from the proletariat, but both of you love the Queen, both of you are part of the nation, the Queen's kingdom, right? You're both subject to the Queen, so you have this other nebulous thing in common, right? It's a really good divide and conquer tactic. Yeah, Shalim, it'll be an interesting one, won't it?
He says, what one change to the system would you make to restore integrity? Because there's a lot of people here in the studio, thank you, not just here in the studio, but watching at home as well. Integrity has been lost in the Westminster bubble.
I mean, she almost certainly will get elected by the Conservative membership. What will actually be incredibly disappointing, and in fact also very, very funny, is if she beats Keith in the next election as well, which is looking more and more likely as polls change.
What would you do to change it?
Well, I think the answer to restoring integrity isn't introducing more rules, because we have endless rules and codes. The issue is about clarity and leadership.
Yeah, the issue is following the fucking rules. The issue wasn't the fact that the rules existed, it's that fuckers kept breaking them. There's one rule that we definitely should get rid of, though, and that isn't calling people a liar in the House of Commons. Because when Dawn Butler got objected from the Commons for telling Boris Johnson that he was a liar and that we have proof that he's a liar, apparently that's worse than doing the actual lying in the first place. Because the Parliamentary Standards Committee didn't even fucking reprimand people for lying, even when it's proven.
And doing what you say you will do and following through on your promises. What I would also do as Prime Minister is restore the Chief Whip to number 12 Downing Street. The Chief Whip was moved out by Alistair Campbell and replaced with the press office. I think that was a mistake because it reduced the link between the Prime Minister, the Chief Whip and the Parliamentary Party. And I would make sure we had zero tolerance for bad behaviour in the Parliamentary Party, but we're also supporting MPs. Because as you say, being Prime Minister is an exposed job, but actually being an MP at the moment is pretty difficult. There's all kinds of difficult things.
It's so difficult getting my lucrative deals to speak on television and my lucrative lobbying contracts that I get with all of the different huge corporations that I shill for, and they pass you brown envelopes under the table. It's so difficult earning £84,000 a year and getting all my expensive pay for and having 2 houses. It's so hard to be an MP.
About you on social media, it can be very difficult for people.
Oh no, the pros! Oh no, the unwashed masses have the ability to hold you accountable for the things that you say and do. There's actual democracy actually is accountable to the opinions and whims of the populace now. Oh no, what a shame! Someone called me a bellend on the Bird app. This is the real issue, and not the issue, the ever-widening gap between the interests of people who make the rules and the interests of the people who have to follow the rules. Right? Come on.
People's family lives. So at the same time as making sure we have discipline and making sure people are honest and behave themselves, we also do need to offer MPs that welfare and support
a new ethics advisor. And you stand by if you would. A new ethics advisor.
Well, I will look at the role.
Very true, Shelly. 100%.
Of the ethics advisor, but I'm somebody who does act with integrity, and I think people have seen that in every job I've done. And I slightly worry about outsourcing ethics to somebody else. As Prime Minister, I should know.
Look, there needs to be independent oversight. Because if you're going to be the judge about whether you've done something wrong or not, of course you're just going to let yourself off the hook every time. Like, it's like when if it's like marking your own test at school. No, you're supposed to pass it to the person at the left.
Difference between right and wrong. And of course, there need to be proper independent complaints procedure. There needs to be proper whistleblowing procedures. But I would want to look at how those things are structured.
OK, you were loyal to the PM despite parties during lockdown, or when he promoted a man who groped colleagues, or when he was rewriting the rules to help out his mates. Throughout that, you stood shoulder to shoulder with a man who has betrayed the office of Prime Minister.
I don't agree with that characterisation, Kay. I support...
How are you going to justify not, like, disagreeing with... Because what Kay Burley has said there is fact. There's not opinions that she said. She said, like, direct facts, which has informed the statement that she made afterwards. You can just say, well, I disagree. I disagree with this. I disagree with... It's the same kind of fake news shit that you got from the Republicans in 2016?
I supported Boris Johnson for the leadership. I think he did a good job as our Prime Minister. He delivered Brexit. He delivered the vaccine.
He didn't deliver Brexit. We still haven't solved the Northern Ireland Protocol that he put into the deal himself as a lie to the populace to keep the DUP happy, which he told Ian Paisley Jr. he had no intention of honouring and was always going to have to scrap and reorganise. If there's one thing that they definitely did not do was deliver Brexit. That hasn't happened. It's still been having to be renegotiated by you, Liz Truss. Like, stop lying.
He also did a fantastic job of leading the free world in standing up to Vladimir Putin in Ukraine. Yes, he made mistakes. That's absolutely true. You know, he said sorry for the mistakes he made.
Oh, yes, the mistake of knowingly promoting a widely known sex pest. Yeah, he like, that was just a mistake that he made. It's like, I just fine if you're a it's fine if you're a sex pest. It's fine. We'll just promote you anyway. It says a lot about somebody, the kind of mistakes that they're willing to make, and forgetting that one of your mates in your party is a serial sex pest, so much so that everyone in the fucking Commons knows about it. If that's the kind of thing that you can forget, then that's an incredibly damning indictment on your own character.
But I think it's completely wrong to characterise him in that way.
I don't know. What does the audience think?
Here.
Yeah, agreed. No. OK.
So I think it's opinion is divided on that issue. I think we can hear from people in the audience. But I've worked closely with Boris Johnson. I know the difficult times he went to. You know, he was in very serious trouble.
I think if Boris was the delivery driver, it would just be like none pizza, left beef every time.
When he had COVID, and you know, it's been a very, very difficult time to be in government. But look, you know, many mistakes were made during lockdown, Kay, you know, by many people. And I just think to sort of say that...
Yeah, most of them didn't get fined only 50 quid. And most of them weren't people who wrote the fucking rules themselves.
This was the, you know, crowning problem is not right.
Yeah, some in charge of policy, some not. A final question for you just before we let you go. You were a Remainer, and now you're not. You supported Brits to fight in Ukraine, and you didn't. You wanted to build on the Green Belt, and now you don't. You wanted to abolish the monarchy, and now you don't. You wanted to arm Taiwan, and now I'm not sure if you're saying whether you do or not. You wanted civil servants...
We do provide them with those
You wanted to cut civil servants' pay in the regions, and then you said you didn't. Will the real Liz Truss please stand up?
I did an Eminem reference. Oh, how do you do, fellow kids? Not, are you just an incredibly disingenuous person who will say whatever that they want to get into power? Or are you absolute charlatan who only cares about the optics of any policies that are proposed and has no specific ideology or any plan to try and get the country back moving or to try and help the general populace? No, it's just, are you Eminem? Like, come on, fucking hell, Kay.
Okay, I'm...
Oh, look how many views I'm going to get on social media for this.
Somebody who, you know, I didn't come from a traditional Conservative background. My first political experience was going on a CND march with my mother, age 7. You know,
yeah, and then the Heritage Foundation surreptitiously inserted some green bills into your pocket, right? And suddenly all of your opinions changed. Don't you find that weird? Isn't that a bit weird?
I then, as a teenager, joined the Liberal Democrats. I'm not sure how much I should be held to account for things I said when I was 18 or 19, but I've always had a belief that we can be a more successful country, that people should be able to control their own lives. I've always believed in the principle of freedom. I've always believed in low taxation. And yes, my views on other issues have developed over time. But show me somebody...
Yeah, freedom unless you're a refugee, in which case you are free to get deported to fucking Rwanda.
...who has the same views at 19 and 49. And I'll show you somebody who's not capable of original thought. So, yes, you know, I have, developed my views. I've considered things differently. And I also listen to people.
OK.
And I think that's important. So what we've been talking about...
Yeah, the question is, though, Liz, who is it that you listen to? Do you listen to economists? Do you listen to political experts? Do you listen to people who have some kind of qualification that ratifies the opinions that they state? Or are you somebody who will just listen to whoever cuts you the biggest check? Because it sounds like it's the latter right now, to be honest. Sounds suspiciously like it's the latter.
Time we have to
on
give,
the policy is I've listened
Rishi
to
the
people.
same amount of time. I did say, will the real Liz Truss please stand up? You're still sitting down.
That's just because you're trying to get rid of me.
Please, thank you very much. Thank you.
Oh, look how funny I am. Oh, look how much I'm failing to hold politicians to account. Oh, I can't. Fuck off, Kay. Anyway, let's watch Rishi now.
Let's talk about the economy to start with, should we? Today, as was being pointed out, the Bank of England saying that we're going to be in recession before the end
Hey, Slithering Sam, well, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the Injustice stream.
of the year, and that's going to last until 2024. People watching at home, and I'm guessing some people here as well, facing months and months of hardship. You've been their Chancellor for the last 2 years. Why on earth should they trust you with the keys of number 10?
In fact, because they've seen me as Chancellor over the last couple of years, and I think, actually, Kate, probably the first time people really saw me was that first press conference when there was an enormous amount of anxiety in the country about what was going to happen to people's jobs, their livelihoods, their businesses, and they didn't really know who I was. I'd just been made Chancellor a couple of weeks before. But I stepped up at that moment to act boldly and radically, to design things that had never been done before in this country, like furlough, that ended up protecting over 10 million jobs, saved over 1 million businesses, helped families get through what are 2 very difficult years, and for our economy to emerge at the end of that in far more resilient shape than anyone had anticipated.
Ah, no worries, Sam. Cheers.
At the beginning. And when I go around the country, people know that that's what I did for them. They're grateful for it, and that's what I want to do as Prime Minister, because right now we face similarly large economic challenges, and
Nothing
it's particularly because of my experience that I'm well placed to deal with them.
Nothing you can do about recession, though, is there? Or is there?
Of course there is. Of course there is. Back to David's question, the number one thing we have to do is not make the situation worse. What is causing the recession? Right? As you heard from the Bank of England today, and I think Liz said something before, which I'm just going to correct, it's not the tax burden that is causing the recession. That's simply wrong. What's causing the recession is inflation. Right? That's the root of the problems we have, not just here, but in America and elsewhere. So the way we're going to get through this, first and foremost, is gripping inflation. Now, we will, and I always have stood by people, as you've seen me over the last couple of years, so I will help people get through the autumn and the winter, as I've done before, and then we will make the right reforms to help grow the economy in the long term. And
I don't think they're that similar. Like, it is like, it's stark listening to, having watched like 3 sets of hustings now and a bunch of the TV debates too. It's so super clear, like, how like intellectually like separated these two are. Like, obviously Rishi's like evil. Rishi's like a bad person, right? But at least he knows what he's doing. Whereas Liz Truss is just a fucking demon, but a chaotic demon who literally doesn't know what the fuck she's doing. She hasn't got a clue, not a fucking clue. She's just like an empty fucking like head. She's just the smoothest brained person. Like, the fact that she got to the final 2 just shows you how apocalyptically stupid all of the rest of the Conservative membership are to even get her there in the first place, right? She doesn't know anything about what she's talking about. Like, I have a rudimentary understanding of like econ policy, not like a huge deal, like most leftists, but even I know more than she does about this shit. She is an absolute weapon and danger to the whole, like, not just the country, but if not like huge amounts of the world as well, with her foreign policy takes. So, like, the difference between Liz and Rishi is like fucking it's an absolute chasm between the two. Like, Rishi is smart, he knows what he's doing, but he's also like evil. He's also just like a bad person morally. He is an immoral piece of shit, but at least he won't crash the economy for lulsies to, you know, accept dollars from the Heritage Foundation.
I don't think the corporate tax proposal...
So you would come up with more money to help people?
Of course I would.
Do you know how much?
Well, we'll have to see the size of the problem. But look, people can see
13.3% inflation is what's predicted. That's the size of the problem.
And I don't want that to be worse. And I don't want it to last longer. So what I'm not going to do is embark on a borrowing spree worth tens of billions of pounds put that on the country's credit card, ask our kids and our grandkids to pick up the tab, because
That's not how a modern economy works, Rishi. Oh. I understand why he says shit like that, but whatever.
that's not right, it's not responsible, and it's certainly not conservative.
But you're promising tax cuts without knowing where inflation will be. Aren't you?
I'm the one that's not sitting here now, promising tens of billions of pounds of unfunded tax cuts.
What you've actually said is no tax cuts until inflation gets under control. What amounts to under control?
When it's on a clearly downward trajectory and we have good line of sight that it is returning back to target, right?
Okay.
Right. But that's why we need to be really careful about policies that will make that worse, right? And look, if that's to the first question, I'm behind in this race.
I'm just a bit confused. So you're saying these income tax cuts might not happen? It depends.
You're talking about my longer-term plan?
Yes, of course I am.
Yeah, my longer-term plan, I'm confident we can deliver it, yes, right? And that was the reason I published that longer-term plan, and that longer-term plan, for those watching, was to, over time, reduce income tax rates in this country, because I believe really strongly in rewarding hard work. Hard work is a value that I think...
I do think that we do need to change the way at which we look at the way tax is stratified, right? In that it seems incredibly strange that corporations and people who get paid out by capital gains or by dividends pay less tax than people who actually work. Right, we actually generate the wealth of civilization, because that's where all wealth comes from. All wealth comes from labor. It doesn't come from investment. It doesn't come from capital. It comes from the labor, because the labor creates the capital and creates the wealth in the first place, right? Which can then be reinvested.
Is really important. I think most Conservatives share that view, that hard work is something that should be rewarded. The best way to do that through the tax system is to reduce the rate of income tax. And I wanted to give people a sense of the direction of where I wanted to take the country and the economy. And I want to build an economy where we cut the rates of income tax over time. And we're going to do that not by asking our kids to pick up the bill. We're going to do it by being disciplined on public spending,
Economics is where you're very comfortable, and we know exactly what you think. What we don't probably...
The problem is that he's trying to appeal to people who don't care. They don't care about the long-term viability of the economy. They just want to make short-term gains now. They want, especially for a Conservative member, they just want to see the house price go up. They want to see their pension provision go up, and that's it. That's all they care about. Unless they want to see their business rates go down, which I guess is fine. I don't not necessarily disagree with changing business rates, or at the very least stratifying business rates so that bigger corporations pay a bigger slice than they do now.
Probably know about is foreign affairs as much. So let me ask you about energy and food bills and how that relates to foreign affairs potentially. How high do you think that energy and food bills will have to go before we reassess our support for Ukraine?
I don't think that's how we're going to look at it, actually, because we can make an enormous difference between now and actually next winter in reducing our dependence on Russian energy. So in the short term, of course, we're going to step in, and I want to step in and help people more. I announced enormous support as Chancellor. As Prime Minister, I'll go further because the situation has deteriorated. But what I'm looking to is, by next winter, that we've got through this. And there's lots of things we can do to help us do that. So I'll give a couple of examples, right? So one thing we can do is improve our energy storage, because actually we can import lots of gas in the middle of the year.
That takes time, though, doesn't it?
No, we can do that relatively quickly. Improved energy storage during the middle of the year. But the other thing we can do is energy efficiency. Now, many of you here, many people watching, are living in homes where we can help improve the insulation. Loft insulation, cavity wall insulation, smart temperature controls. Those are relatively small-scale interventions that don't take very long or cost a fortune, and government has got money. But if we turbocharge that programme, we can not only reduce our demand for energy, which improves our energy security, we can also save people up to £300 on their bills. Now, that's the type of thing that we should be doing.
So we can continue to support Ukraine as long as we lag our loft, is that what you're saying?
We need to be lagging our loft anyway for climate change reasons, right? Because it's good to reduce our long-term demand on energy, right? But what we do want to do is make sure we help people with their bills, and that's a good practical example of something we can do.
On the conflict in Ukraine, Boris Johnson has really thrown himself into the cause. I think everybody might agree with that. He's regarded as a hero, apparently, in Ukraine. That's what he tells us. He brandishes his missile launchers. We've seen that. Are you really tough enough to stand up to Vladimir Putin?
Well, just think for a moment. How are we currently standing up?
This is your hell yeah moment.
Yeah, so how are we standing up to Vladimir Putin? Right? How are we actually doing it? We're doing two things. Right? We're sending arms and money to Ukraine, which, as we talked about earlier, I found from elsewhere in government spending so that we could free up that money to send to President Zelensky. But what's the other way we're weakening Russia? We're doing it through economic sanctions, right? We're not sending...
the economic sanctions that you deliberately waited for so that your mates who are Russian oligarchs could take their money out of the UK so as to minimise the impact of the sanctions. Didn't Roman Abramovich close down on a deal to sell out of his assets before the sanctions came into effect because they waited too long for it? Just fucking confiscate that shit. Fucking requisition all of the properties in London that are being bought out by dirty Russian money. Just fucking requisition. This is shit. Fuck it. do you really want to stick the boot in, right? Hit it where it hurts rather than just making it so that you make the regular poor people in Russia suffer by sanctioning them on things that would actually go into helping their standard of living. God, it's going to be frustrating.
Troops into Russia, right? It's not diplomatic measures that are making a difference, it's economic. What are we doing? We're targeting his companies, their access to global capital markets, his gold trading, his central bank reserves. That's how we're economically turning the screw on Russia.
Except they're just going to China and India now.
Who do you think put all those things together? I did with all my finance minister colleagues around the world, working with the Treasury Secretary in America, working with European finance ministers. We designed an international package of economic sanctions that sends a very strong message that we will not stand for his aggression. It's the most stringent set of economic sanctions the world has ever seen, and it is making a difference. And as Prime Minister, I will go further because there's more things we can do. So, yes, I'm tough enough, and I'm already delivering the measures that are actually causing him the most trouble. Thank you.
Ben Wallace, as I mentioned before, said that you had to be overruled on defence spending. Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, reportedly said that you objected to the Rwanda plan during a written discussion between the departments. Brandon Lewis, the Northern Ireland Secretary, former Northern Ireland Secretary, has accused you of putting up huge resistance on efforts to override the Northern Ireland Protocol. It looks as though there's a recurring...
It's weird how, like, Rishi will say what is, like, moral in private, yet he knows that the people that he's trying to actually get on side for the leadership election are an absolute bunch of the worst possible members of society, fucking immoral pieces of shit. So he has to change his opinion from the moral and correct one to being the immoral, like the absolutely morally repugnant one in public. This is fucking insane.
Theme there, doesn't there? You say one thing in private and then you say something else for voter consumption. So should we believe them or should we believe you?
Well, look, when it comes to the Rwanda plan, I do believe in the Rwanda policy, but do I ask tough questions when cabinet ministers come to me and say, oh, look, we'd like to do this new thing? Yeah, because my job is to make sure that yours and everyone else watching and everyone in this audience's money is spent properly. That's part of my job. I wouldn't be doing my job properly if every time some cabinet minister came to me and said, oh, please can I have X billion pounds to do this new thing? I don't say, well, hang on, let me just check that this actually is going to work. Is it worth us spending taxpayers' money on it?
So you think spending £120 million on sending 200 people to Rwanda is good value for money?
Yeah, well, it's the pilot, right? So the pilot bit is expensive. So you're asking now exactly the questions I was asking. So if Priti Patel or anyone else is going to say, oh, now I express some doubts about it, it was...
I mean, maybe, like, I can't believe it. I mean, this is a really excellent line of questioning from Kay Burley that I didn't expect. I'd not heard about this previously. But it's clear that he probably did just raise ethical concerns at the time. But he can't say that because the people that he's appealing to are the absolute fucking worst dregs of humanity that society has to offer because they feel happy giving the Conservative Party £25 a year of their hard-earned money.
There's doubts about how we're going to make the policy work. I believe in the policy, but it's not good enough in government to just announce things. It's not good enough to put out a press release. It's what you need to do is deliver things. And I think what people saw from me during the pandemic as Chancellor, that I could deliver things. I actually delivered policies that worked and made a difference, which, by the way, were done in record time and were radical. And I will bring that same sense of grip and urgency and competence to all these other challenges, whether it's the Rwanda policy, whether it's the NHS backlogs.
OK, let's talk about climate. You brought it up. We're trying to whiz through these topics as best we can because, obviously, some of these people have not got their ballot papers yet. Some have. And what you're telling them, both here in the studio and at home this evening, could make the difference as to whether or not you are the next Prime Minister of this country. So let's talk about the climate, should we? One issue that affects not just our finances, but, of course, our future, is your green credentials. Can I test them?
Sure.
Here we go. New coal mines. Yes or no?
They're local decisions, but I don't think we should be importing coal from other places if we have it at home.
OK. What about fracking?
Where it has the support of local communities, I'm in favour of it.
OK, but we have seen some big issues with fracking, haven't we, particularly in my part of the world, in the northwest of England.
I think this is kind of the right kind of movement that you can go upon. If you're trying to appease both sides of the line, you just go like, well, it's open to, whether people actually want it in their area. But if they, but I don't mind giving them the green light. You kind of appease both sides of the argument with something like this. Obviously, I'm against fracking myself. And, it'd be difficult to try and want to impose fracking upon people. Even on, like, some kind of majority vote as well, because it's so localised, the areas that would get affected by the fracking, I don't know. But if you're trying to win over, like, the centrist, like, less far-right members of the Tory membership, who do for some reason care about the environment and are also Tories at the same time, by saying, I disagree with the implementation of it, but if people want it in their area, then they give them. That's a pretty good answer to give.
We've seen at least 3 earthquakes that apparently have been caused by fracking.
Yeah, but we also, as I said, most importantly, it has to be done with the support of local communities. But we do also have a study from, I think 3 different royal societies. I think of geologists and engineers, and I can't remember the third group, but it's online somewhere, all of whom said that they believe fracking is safe and the seismic activity is not out of the ordinary. They're all the scientists who have came to that conclusion, not me. But as I said, I'm supportive of it where we can bring the local community along with us, because if we can get it to work, it's good for our long-term energy
Would you
security.
raise flight taxes?
Would I raise?
Flight taxes?
No.
Why not?
Well, because as Chancellor, I already made a change to airline taxation.
You did? It's not very green, though, was it?
Yes, it was, actually, because
Tell
I
me
did
why.
2 things. One is I reversed a European rule that forced us to charge people twice when they flew inside of the United Kingdom on air passenger duty. I didn't think that was right, and after we left the EU, we could say we're not going to do that anymore if you fly around the UK.
True, it does. I know. Surely it says 3 vol, because the E backwards looks like a 3.
Because we believe in a United Kingdom, you should
Okay.
only be taxed once. But at the same time, I created a new band. For the longest haul flights, the most polluting flights, we created a brand new band
We created a new band. It's called the Mecha Beatles.
with a high level of tax. So actually it was balanced. Right? So for the
Okay.
people who are flying the farthest with the more emissions, they were going to pay more. For people flying within the
Let me
United
ask you-
Kingdom, we took an advantage of Brexit.
Okay, let me...
But hang on, but no, but that's not what you want to you want to stop encouraging short haul flights. Like the thing that we need to stop completely are short haul flights within the UK. Just make trains cheaper. Just get people on fucking trains. You don't need to fly from London to fucking Aberdeen. You do not need to just get a fucking train.
Let me
Cut
ask you about
taxes there.
onshore wind, yes or no? Because I'm a bit confused on this one. Offshore wind, onshore wind, forgive me, yes or no?
No.
Because if anything, long haul flights are the ones where there's literally no other way you can do it. You can't get the Eurostar. You can't travel you can't interrail to fucking Qatar, can you? You have to get a long haul flight, right? That's the things that if people have to get the flight, then that seems fine. What we need to do is tax short haul flights out of fucking existence, because there's just no need. There's no need for really short haul flights for essentially transfer flights within the UK. We're a tiny country. Like transfer flights in the United States, like sure, I get it. Transfer flights from fucking within the UK, that's madness.
Okay, you've changed your mind.
No, I haven't. Last night I was asked a question, I didn't fully understand it, and I misspoke, but my position on that is the same as it's been.
Okay, how are we going to get to net zero by 2050?
With innovation. Right?
Yeah.
And the type of future economy that I want to create is one where this, and we talked about
By
it.
magic, by hoping, fingers crossed, that the solution will just happen, but we can continue doing things as we want right now.
Answer to the visas question from someone.
Okay.
If we have an economy where this is the best place in the world for people to create, invent, discover new things, we will get there.
Okay.
And we will get there in a way that lowers people's bills.
Okay.
Now, look, my business background, my experience means I know how to build that type of economy in this
We've got
country.
to...
Yeah, because if you're in Alaska, if you're in like Fairbanks or something, if you want to be able to get to the United States not by flying, you actually have to go into another country to do so. But technically, if you're flying, I'm assuming if you're flying from like Anchorage to Seattle or whatever, then that involves that technically still counts as an internal flight, even though you probably fly over Canada to get there. It's because your point of entry and your point of exit are both within the same country. It still technically counts as an internal flight, right? I don't know enough about airline politics.
Rush through this.
Okay,
It's like
well,
running
that's
for a
what's
bus.
important
Okay,
on net zero,
yeah,
but
quick fire.
there's an enormous
quick fire
opportunity
questions
there.
here, if you don't mind. Quick fire questions. Here we go. Do you personally support the 24-week limit on abortion?
As a personal thing, yes. I mean, these are personal decisions. They're not government decisions. I don't think there's any need to change
I mean, but the government is the one that has the current limit at the moment.
I believe in a woman's right to choose. I don't think there's any reason to change the laws that we have.
Why have you abstained on every major vote on abortion?
Probably because I've not been in Parliament on the day.
You didn't think it was important enough to be there?
Because as Chancellor, I'm often travelling.
2015, apparently. Were you Chancellor in 2015?
No, but I mean, these are not free. I mean, I completely agree with our current system of abortion. I don't think it should be changed. So so that's my general view. That's always been my
Okay,
view.
you just haven't been there when the votes have been taking place. Would you fist bump the Saudi leader Mohammed bin Salman as Joe Biden did?
I'm probably not a fist.
Oh, just say, do you support killing children in Yemen? Skewer him, say, look, Joe Biden fist bumped the leader of the country that is killing Houthi children. Like, come on, just
Bumping type of person, I think, probably.
Did you shake his hand then?
I mean, yes, I would shake his hand. I think you do have to engage with people
Oh, well done, Mr. Yemeni children killer. Oh, excellent work on your killing of Yemeni children.
around the world. I don't think, and they're a country that we have a relationship with.
In a video, here it comes, from
Please continue buying my weapons to kill your many children with, please.
2001, you said you didn't have any working class friends. Have you made any working class friends since you left university?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was a student when I said that. We all say silly things when we're younger. I mean, at the same time, I was...
True, he must have met loads of working class people in Czechs Notes, Oxford, and then working for Goldman Sachs, and then being a member of the Conservative Party. I'm sure he made loads of working class friends at Goldman Sachs.
As you know, I was working in my mum's shop. I was out and about, cycling around, running around, delivering medicines to people, or people from all walks of life. But obviously, I was a kid and I said something silly.
So you do have working class friends now?
Yeah, I mean, I don't go around asking them what how they define themselves. I mean, I'd rather think we've kind of moved. I think we've moved beyond that as a country, actually.
How reassuring.
Yeah, we've moved beyond the division of labour. Brilliant. I'm glad that you support ending the class nature of society, Rishi. I never thought I'd see the day.
I think people are less interested in where you've come from. People are interested in where you're going. That's the kind of country I want to build, right? Where, thank you, yeah. Right.
Let me ask you the same question that I asked Liz Truss about being Prime Minister being the most invasive, exposed period in any politician's life. Anything you want to tell us about?
No. I mean, look, I've had a relatively high-profile job for 2 years, and I think people have seen me in action, and they've seen, what I can do. They've seen, and look, much of my personal life has also been talked about earlier this year, and that was an experience that I took, that I learned from and dealt with. So, yes, I'm used to the scrutiny.
Okay. Another simple question. Have you ever benefited financially from the use of tax havens?
No.
A venture capital firm you co-founded, Tellman Partners, was registered in the Cayman Islands. So just to clarify...
I personally...
Fucking burn! Gotcha! Hello! Caught in 4K.
Absolutely never ever benefited and have paid absolutely full normal taxes wherever I've lived.
Did you set up that business?
No.
OK, so you weren't a co-founder in 2009?
Not of the bit in the Cayman Islands that you're referring to. I have nothing to do with.
OK.
I mean, I happen to work with a company...
Sure you didn't, Rishi. We believe you.
That has multiple offices all around the world, but that's not my responsibility. It was not running the company.
So you weren't in any way paid by that offshore company. No connections with it.
When I was living in America, I paid all my taxes in America, and when I've lived in the UK, I paid all my taxes in the UK, as completely as anyone else would.
OK, the reason I'm asking is that, as you know, as all our audience know, you've had to clarify your wife's non-dom status. You held permanent residency in the United States while you were setting the taxes of British voters, which is what a green card means. You're building a swimming pool at your constituency home while the public pool in Richmond is facing closure after a 400% energy hike. This has all led to a perception problem for you. People feel that you can't walk a mile.
People feel that he can't relate to normal people. Of course he fucking can't. He's a Tory politician. When was the last time any Tory politician even stood next to somebody who who lived a normal life?
In their shoes because you're walking in your Prada shoes. What would you say to them?
So look, over the past couple of weeks, right, I've been out and about across the country talking to members of the public, and as I was saying, lots of people have come to talk to me about that press conference and furlough and what difference it made to their lives. Do you know, I was wearing the same suit in that press conference, the same shoes as that I'm wearing now, right? I'm the same person.
How much were they worth?
Yeah, I'm
very slick.
I'm exactly the same person, right? I'm the same person that stood there and made sure that we helped the country through a very difficult time. And that's what I'll do as Prime Minister. And I think British people judge people by their character and by their actions, not by their bank account. Yeah. Thank you.
Wrong. I mean, to be fair, yeah, I definitely do judge people by their actions and by their character. It turns out, right, you have to have done certain actions or be of a certain character to get to the point at which you're happy spaffing huge amounts of money on really expensive shoes. Like, if you have Prada shoes, that shows that that's an action that you've taken. And if you want to get filthy fucking rich, that shows what kind of values that you have. So that's what we're judging you for, not the fact that the shoes exist or that you have, or they just happen to be on your feet at the time.
That certainly seems to be the case as far as the audience is concerned here, but there's plenty of people who are watching at home who would disagree with that. Perception is reality, and they think that you're too rich to be Prime Minister.
Yeah, well, the reality is one of the last things I did as Chancellor was announce significant help for people with their energy bills this autumn and winter. And to the question...
Which you only did to try and save Boris Johnson's skin whilst you were both being fined for breaking the fucking rules.
We had at the front.
He was even told by the media that we knew that there was this deadlock between the Chancellor and the Prime Minister about these windfall taxes and these energy payments, because you didn't want to do them, Rishi. You were ideologically opposed to them, whereas Boris Johnson just wanted to do anything that made him popular. And you capitulated on that to save his skin, not because it's anything that you believed in, right? So to try and tell us that that's something that you've done, that's just fucking nonsense.
from David, I think it was, right? That was David's question was about helping the most vulnerable, right? People who really needed help. That's what I did. Because, look, we're all going to have a difficult time, and inflation makes everyone poorer, and that's why I'm so concerned about policies that will make it worse and last longer, and that's not right. But
I mean, if it's making everybody poorer, then why, during this inflation, have companies' profits continued to increase, and they've continued to pay out even more money to their shareholders in dividends, right? Clearly, the people that it's making richer are the people at the top, at the expense of people at the bottom. It's not like just regular like demand pull inflation. This is cost push inflation that is being explicitly used to make the lives of people at the bottom worse off, at the expense, but to keep the people at the top in Rolexes. Very simple.
When we do need to help people this autumn and winter, our focus should be on the people who most need our help. And actually, when Liz is sitting here saying she's going to scrap the NHS levy, do you know who that benefits? That benefits the top 15% of earners. Right? That's what that policy does. It's not going to help the people that David was asking about with the cost of living this winter. Right? The policies I announced as Chancellor are targeted on those people because they are the people that need our help. Right? It's going to be really tough. It's going to be really tough for lots of people. And much as I want to support them to work hard and do those things, right, it's going to be just impossible for some people, and we need to help them. And that's what I did.
You can't do all of that on your own.
This is where we diverge between Rishi and Liz, right? Where Liz just does not give a shit about poor people. She just holds them in like absolute contempt. Whereas at least Rishi is happy to look like he cares.
Penny Mordaunt has backed Ms Truss.
But that's not who they're trying to appeal to. Unfortunately, the milk of human kindness is lost on Tory members. That's why they're Tory members.
Wallace has backed Ms Truss. Nadeem Zahawi has backed Ms Truss. Tom Tugendhat has backed Liz Truss. Sajid Javid, your old boss, has backed Ms Truss. Why are so many people supporting her rather than you?
Right, but Kate, it goes back to
because she's ideologically not even like a neoliberal. She's like an ideological objectivist, and the whole fucking party is absolutely psychotic, right? Like, if you are trying to tout yourself as some kind of serious politician in the Conservative Party and you're backing Liz Truss over Rishi Sunak, then like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, why are you an MP? How can anybody trust you to make proper decisions if you're backing Liz Truss over Rishi Sunak in this election? Not a fucking clue.
Question right at the beginking.
It's very clear that they think that she'll win, and they think that if they back her, she'll give them a cabinet position. They don't. I mean, they probably do. I mean, they may think she's worse. They may not think that she's worse, right? If they're not absolutely fucking smooth-brained, they will understand that she's definitely worse. But as soon as they see that she's going to be the one that's likely to win, suddenly they become a glory supporter overnight, and they were like, "Oh, it's fine, Liz. I know I only backed you a week before all of the polls that released that showed you were in charge, but no, I really do back you." In general, no, please give me a cabinet position. Oh, I've been such a good MP. I've been so nice to you, despite all the insults that I threw at you during the leadership contest.
Of the parliamentary process, I had the broadest and biggest number of support.
That have worked most closely with you, and they've decided that they prefer her.
No, well, hang on. Most MPs in Parliament, and all MPs work together in lots of different guises.
These people work around the cabinet table with you day in, day out, and they said, you know what?
Actually, Tom Tugendhat and Penny Mordaunt are not in the cabinet.
Okay.
Actually, but every single round of the parliamentary process,
was it in your cabinet?
I led. Right, I was the person that MPs chose every round ahead of everyone else, and since it finished, more and more people have come and joined the team. So I'm really humbled by that, and I'm delighted. And actually, as we were answering a question, that support is drawn really widely from across the parliamentary party. And I'm not going to get into who's going to have this job and that job. I've got a contest that I want to try and win. I want to be out and about talking to all of you about my ideas for the future. But I will build a team that reflects all the talent and traditions of our party. As I said, you saw a lot of that on display in this leadership contest. And as we talked about before, we're all one team. We're all one family. We're going to come together after this. We're going to serve the British people, and then we're going to take it to Keir Starmer and win the next election, because that's the real prize.
Final thought: when you look at yourself in the mirror at night just before you go to bed, and you think, all these people that have sat around the cabinet table with me, and now they don't want to work with me. They think that the other candidate's better.
But plenty of people who sat around the cabinet table also support me. Right, Dominic Raab, the Deputy Prime Minister, is out there right now talking about it, and lots of others. But I also, as I said, now answer to the question.
Just him.
Right. I think we only just have one person, right? Yeah, much as we love you and we love Scott.
David Davis was one of the big backers for Rishi's campaign, and David Davis was Brexit Secretary for a long time.
I think it's really tolerate just one person giving up their evening to come and talk to you later. But I've been really humbled.
Not sure how to take that, actually.
Well, you know what? I think
that's a perfect place to end. It's lovely to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Very nice to see you. Thanks very much.
Well, clearly, both of them are bad. Both of them are bad. Both of them are morally repugnant. Both of them are shameful careerists who have no solutions for any of the problems. But at least one of them is slightly competent and isn't just a shill for the Heritage Foundation, and that's Rishi Sunak. So And he's not going to win. Oh, well, we're fucked then, aren't we? And if you have enjoyed this content, please do consider liking and subscribing. If you click the bell, it'll notify you when I go live on YouTube. And if you click my little face down there, it'll take you to more videos which you can watch of my excellent content. And if you really, really want to support me, you can subscribe on Twitch, which gives you access to all my emotes, or if you have a Patreon, you can support me there as well. Cheers, if you're future viewers. I'll catch you on the next one.